This is Lisa from MobileTechReview, and here's an exciting one, the Microsoft Surface Book 2. This is the 15-inch model. Now, the Surface Book's been around for 2 years now. The original model came out 2 years ago, right? And when it did, it was futuristic, deeply weird in a good way, and certainly keenly expensive. And what was wrong with it at the time was that Microsoft really overpromised on what it was. They made it sound like it had the most powerful processor, killer graphics, and it didn't really. They weren't bad, but they weren't all that. So finally, 2 years later with the Book 2, it really is that killer machine that they first kind of promised us 2 years ago. We have a quad-core CPU inside. Now, this is the 15-watt quad-core CPU for Ultrabooks. It's still not the 45-watt used in like the Dell XPS 15 and gaming laptops, or the Surface Studio for that matter. But it's still very powerful, and in tests it's been 40% faster than the dual cores, and it's getting close enough to those 45-watt quad cores in big laptops that it's pretty good. It's pretty darn good. And even more exciting, we have NVIDIA GTX 1060 graphics inside of the 15-inch and GTX 1050 in the 13-inch. That's the full Monty there. That's not the Max Q version. And because Microsoft's design is finally coming to fruition, in terms of thermals, it really makes a lot of sense because they put the GPU in the base section, right? So all the heat is away from the other hot components, the CPU, the RAM, the SSD, all that sort of thing. So even though it's relatively speaking thin in its bizarre wedgy way, the heat is not a concern, nor particularly is noise anyway. So I'm pretty excited about this. The price is a little painful though. The 13-inch as ever starts out at $14.99, but that's going to get you a 13.5-inch with no dedicated graphics and the Core i5 CPU. Still quad-core, but hey. And if you want the dedicated graphics, that automatically moves you to a Core i7, and that's $2,000. Thereafter, it's only the RAM and the SSD configurations that change. This 15-inch has only dedicated graphics option. You can't buy it with the integrated GPU, though it has switchable graphics. There's an integrated GPU in the tablet, but you'll get that for your price at least. And you're going to get a Core i7, that's the starting point for that, and it's $2,500. Ouchie, we're talking MacBook Pro pricing territory, right? But you know, it kind of beats the out of the MacBook Pro. I'll talk about that. As you go up in pricing, it's going to increase your SSD capacity only. 16 gigs of RAM all day, all night in this 15-inch. So sorry if you want 32, but don't worry, you're not going to get cheeseballed down into 8. So we're going to look at it now. Yes, it still has the weird design. You can actually see through here. Hello, I can see you. It's that fulcrum hinge, which is a pretty neat snake-style hinge here, but it does make it thicker on the back. So ergonomically and design-wise, this is pretty much unchanged from the previous version. Granted, the 15-inch model is just, well, a little bit bigger than the 13.5-inch model. You still have the magnetic attachment for the pen, which is really very firm right here. Now, Microsoft has improved the release mechanism and the fulcrum hinge, and some people said they didn't notice the difference. I don't know how they couldn't. I've used the Surface Books a lot, so I can tell. So you still have the release button right here, and you can release it when it's even turned off. And now when you press it, there's none of that. Sometimes it doesn't work, and it goes jiggly wiggly and doesn't, and you have to try again. Makes it a nice sound, and then boom, it comes off. It's pretty easy. I haven't had to struggle with getting this thing on and off anymore, and then you can just put it back on if you want, or you can put it on backwards and close the lid and use it like you would a regular 360-degree convertible. Why would you want to do that, right, when you can just take this off? And by the way, this is 1.8 pounds. This is an artist's dream come true, to have a 15-inch display that you can draw on that's not a burden and heavy. I usually use convertibles to draw on, like the HP Spectre X360 15-inch or the Samsung Notebook 9 Pro 15-inch. And let me tell you, over 4 pounds of weight is noticeable. This is very light. So why would you want to reattach it? Probably for those of you who are doing 3D design work, CAD or ZBrush or something like that, because the integrated graphics, the CPU, the RAM, the SSD, they're all in the tablet section. You probably know this about the book. The dedicated graphics is in the base. So when you need that dedicated graphics, you can reattach it and then just close it up and turn it into a reverse kind of boom, like this. So then you've got something with the dGPU. Granted, you're up to that 4.2 pounds, which is 1.9 kilograms or so. So it's heavier at that. But then, I mean, the only other tablet convertible like this that has similar horsepower is the Lenovo Yoga 720 15-inch. So there's not many that can do that kind of thing. And the Yoga can't separate. By the way, for those of you who are wondering, the 13.5-inch is still 3.38 pounds, which is 1.5 kilograms or so. So not too heavy, either of these considering. Another improvement is finally we get USB-C. However, it does not support Thunderbolt 3. This is about the only gotcha with the product that I can think of other than the high price tag, because Microsoft otherwise gave us everything we wanted. A powerful CPU, a great GPU, a fantastic nearly 4K display, all this nice stuff. But the one thing is like, so why not Thunderbolt 3? I suppose it's because they still sell that Surface dock, which is list price at $199. That gives you many more USB ports, 2 display ports, Ethernet port, a headphone jack, all that sort of thing. So a lot of what you'd want to do except for an external GPU is there. It does have an SD card slot as a plus, which is pretty darn nice, and you have 2 regular USB 3.0 ports on it, and of course a headphone jack as well. One thing that is a bummer is there is no display port built in on it, so you're going to have to use a USB-C to display port adapter if you don't want to go with that whole dock situation. So like I mentioned, when it comes to heat, this is an ingenious idea to have the graphics card in the dock, because it's the thing that's generating a good amount of heat. And if you keep it away from the also hot CPU and the fast PCIe NVMe SSD, ours is a Samsung PM961, by the way, you've got an ideal solution here. There's a fan in the tablet, there's a fan in the base. When it's working moderately hard, not gaming, that's another class of working hard, as in working hardest, you'll hear the fans, but they're kind of always a whoosh, not like that panicked kind of, of a razor blade or something like that. It's more like a whoosh. A whoosh you'll hear, but not too bad. The heat on this is not bad. You can see some thermal pictures that we've got. The base is okay. The back of the tablet will get hot if you're doing something like gaming. If you're just working in Premiere or in Photoshop or something like that, it does not get hot. It will get warm at worst. The new Intel 8th Gen CPUs already rock. You've watched a couple of my other videos. You know this already, about 40% improvement in speed over the dual-core 7th generation CPUs. And it's closer to the 45-watt quad cores that are in more powerful laptops than it is to those old 15-watt dual cores. You're getting most of the work done. What's impressive here, though, is all of the laptops that I've tested with Intel 8th Gen quad-core CPUs so far, you can see in the graphs for performance when I'm doing things like benchmarks that it zigzags up and down a lot because it can't maintain that turbo boost. This one maintains boost speed right there, pegged at the top for long periods of time, much like a 45-watt quad-core mobile workstation would or a gaming laptop. So they have really gotten some good performance out of this. The cores can get hot on this, and you can see when playing Civ for about 40 minutes or so, they've reached pretty high, 95 degrees on one core. Typically, it stays in the mid-80s when playing Civ, but I was pushing it at almost 4K resolution. I dropped it down to 1920 by 1200, and that did help to bring the temperatures down. So it's not going to kill itself with the heat, but the components do get toasty. The GPU, however, 68 to 72 degrees, which is quite cool, centigrade that is. One thing to note about that GPU, though, it's great that it's not Max-Q, right? So you have full performance here, but it's a PCIe 16X card, but they're only using it in a 4X, 4-lane configuration, so there should be less performance there. That said, in terms of benchmarks and the frame rates in games, I really didn't see much of a difference between your usual 16-lane configuration, say like the 14-inch Razer Blade with the same GPU inside. 16 gigs of RAM, like I said, is the max. If you need more than that, this is not the machine for you. The cheaper configurations of the 13-inch come with 8 gigs, which is a little light given the price. Ah, well. You can get 256, 512, or 1 terabyte SSD in here, and this is a sealed design, just like before. There's really no way that you're going to be opening up this tablet part, or even probably the base, to upgrade anything yourself, so I would say buy it the way you need it. Thank God fast external storage is available now. You can get Samsung T3 and T5 external SSDs for reasonable prices, and you can even run games from it. I've run games off of the SSD instead of the internal storage, because ours is just a 256 gig model. One thing I did notice, the read speeds are fantastic. You can see crystal disk mark on the screen, but the write speeds were unusually low. It looks to me like they need a little firmware update or something to address that. The display on the 15 inches, every bit as beautiful as the 13.5-inch model. It just falls 600 pixels short of being full 4K. That's the across, the horizontal way, because of the 3:2 aspect ratio that they use. If you spend a lot of time watching movies or creating movies, you might prefer a widescreen laptop. For all other means, or types of content consumption and creation, web pages, Word, Excel, all that kind of thing, the 3:2 is really great. I like it for art too. That's sort of a golden mean there, the 3:2 ratio. So it works out fine, but you know best what kind of work you do and what you need there. It's an IPS display. Has excellent calibration out of the box, and just like Surface Studio, you have two profiles, sRGB and enhanced. Enhanced is less accurate. I did do colorimeter tests both ways. So it looks a little zingier, the colors look a little more saturated, but it's less accurate. So I just ended up going back with sRGB and calibrating it from there. The color gamut is good on it. You can see the metrics there, the contrast is good on it. It's not a super wide color gamut display, but honestly, look at it. This is one of the nicer looking displays just to eyeball it. And the accuracy is right up there with a Mac, which just says a lot. The display, by the way, is glossy, but the reflectance is well managed. It's not quite as good as a MacBook Pro when it comes to amazing lack of reflectance, but it's better than most. It's certainly a lot better than the HP Spectre X360 15-inch, which is very much a mirror. The speakers on this for a tablet are quite good. I was impressed with the 13.5-inch model when it comes to the speakers, though. They're pretty loud and they're pretty full. I enjoy them. The keyboard and the trackpad is pretty much same old, which is a good thing. It's a very good white backlit keyboard. It's a pleasure to type on, and the trackpad is, well, your Microsoft Precision trackpad, which is preternaturally good. It just follows your fingers to the T, behaves well. Nice experience there. The pen on this is N-Trig. Microsoft, well, they bought N-Trig, and 4,096 levels of pressure, and I'm using the latest generation pen that we have right here, the one that came out with the Surface Pro earlier this year that doesn't have the clip on the side anymore. So that's the updated one that gives you pen tilt also. So it's nice to have tilt, honestly. It's something that I miss from having a Wacom and even the iPad Pro. And there's now, the settings applet now actually allows you globally to adjust the pressure curves on this. Hallelujah, yeah. So you can customize this to your feel a little bit. This is not the N-Trig of several years ago that really you have to press hard with. The pressure curves on this are pretty nice. Not as light as Wacom EMR. Wacom EMR still feels like delicate sketching with a pencil on paper, and this is a little bit more like a pen on ink. It is a little bit less still of a lightness of touch thing going on here, so it depends on the kind of work that you're doing. I think if you're doing cartooning, line art, that sort of thing, certainly if you're doing ZBrush, then this sort of solution is fantastic. If you're a natural media style painter, the Wacom EMR is still going to be the one to beat. Sadly, the pen is not in the box. They're charging us this much, $99 for the pen. Yeah, well, that is what it is. And then there's the Surface Dial, also $99. Not indispensable. You can use this on the screen if you want. The screen's not that big. I prefer to use it on the desk. I actually do own this, and I do use this, and I use it with non-Microsoft laptops too, because it's a convenient way, if I have the keyboard not available, to do things like quick zooming and tool selection changes, that sort of thing. So it's not bad. It's not as crucial as the pen, probably, to most people, though. For those of you who are sensitive to coil whine, there is a little bit here. I can hear it. It's pretty faint, relatively speaking. It's less than your average Dell XPS 13 or 15 model. I don't know, 2017 is the year of coil whine. Probably 2/3 of the laptops that I've tested have had some coil whine. So I think we're just going to have to get used to the little bit of that sound. It's not that loud. I can deal. Gaming with this? Oh yeah, and this is a very strange thing to be thinking about here. Something that's a convertible tablet to play serious games on. Played the new Wolfenstein, new Colossus on this, pegged it at 60 frames per second thanks to VSync, and it was fine, and it didn't overheat, and it didn't throttle down, and I had no problems. And playing something like Civ, which a lot of people would think, yeah, that's more like a good fit for it, because it's a little bit more CPU intensive. The quad-core CPU helps there, and playing Civ at the native resolution, which is almost 4K, is just fine, and it's fun. In fact, you can actually detach it, because Civ doesn't need a lot of graphics power, and you can actually play Civ just on the tablet section, and it's bearable. The back will get all pretty toasty, though, so, you know, hold it by the sides, not by the center of the back area. One problem, though, here is that Microsoft, what is it with, you know, sometimes even MSI and ASUS have done this, and Alienware, given us a AC adapter that's not quite enough watts to actually power it when it's going full throttle gaming with the GPU engaged at 100% or 99% utilization. You get a 102 watt charger in the box. What does that mean? Well, if you take a GTX 1060, that wants 80 watts max. Then you got 15 watts for your CPU. Then you need some for the display and the rest of the components inside. So it really should be a 120 watt adapter. What does that mean? If you're playing AAA titles, the most demanding kind of titles, not Civ, you know, not even rendering video, but if you're playing something like Wolfenstein or Overwatch, and this is perfectly capable of playing Overwatch real nicely, keeping it at 60 frames per second at high settings, you're going to see some battery drain. That's what it means. Microsoft supposedly is looking into this. It's basic math. I don't know why they would have to even think about looking into it. When it comes to VR, the GTX 1060 does support VR. However, Microsoft has not enabled it. They claim because it's a detachable, which means when you detach it, the tablet has just an integrated GPU section, right? That sounds like a lame excuse to me. It doesn't make any sense. The first generation 13.5-inch Surface Book had really good battery life, like we're verging on 10 hours, and we're seeing very good battery life here again. This is for productivity and streaming video, not for playing Overwatch, where your battery life would be a lot shorter. And I'm seeing at about 10 hours on this as well, so that's pretty impressive. That's with the entire contraption put together. It's the same story as before. If you use the tablet by yourself, because both the tablet and the base have a battery, the base has the bigger battery. If you use the tablet by itself, it's still around 2.5 hours. There is a charging connection, as always, on the tablet section and on the base. So if you do just want to use the tablet, say you're doing an extended art session or something like that, or you're playing Civ on it, you can plug the charger directly into the tablet as a consolation. You can also charge via USB-C if you want, on the base, because that's the only place where there's a USB-C connector. You can't use both the docking connector and the USB-C to charge at the same time. Microsoft said, no, you can't do that, which isn't unusual. For laptops that have both methods of charging, you can't do both at once. It's one or the other. So this is a drawing that I did in Photoshop using the Surface right here, and this is the latest version of Photoshop, and it works really quite well. It's just nice. Of course, there's no parallax here. There is palm rejection, though I always wear my art glove because no palm rejection is perfect. And it's working out very nicely here. And I can get some nice shading lines like I did right here to mimic charcoal. The pressure curves are pretty good on this. And then if I want to do something heavy, obviously, give him real hollow under his Adam's apple right there. We've got a lot of gradation of lines right there. It's nice. And in terms of parallel diagonal lines, there's really very little jitter. Whoop, I made a jittery line because the tablet moved. There we go. It's pretty good. It's not perfect, but this is a great improvement over other pens that we've seen that are active where the pen battery is what powers it. Only Wacom EMR has those good diagonal lines usually. That is really nice. And the speed, of course, is just fine. And right now I'm just using the tablet section, so it's running on Intel integrated graphics. There's enough horsepower for 2D work. If you're doing 3D work, I would say most of the time you're going to be wanting to use the base if you're getting really serious with your CAD or your ZBrush. I'm not much of a 3D jockey, so I'm not going to demo that here, but you've got plenty of horsepower inside to do 3D design work. Now, you art folks out there, if you want to see more in-depth coverage on the art, just let me know and I'll make a separate video just on art on this. So price justification, is there one for this very expensive piece of kit? Well, if you're usually a MacBook Pro buyer, then the price doesn't faze you at all. It's priced around $100 more than the competing MacBook Pro at a given configuration level. So there you have it. Clearly, if you're not wedded to Mac OS, this does a whole lot more. Can a Mac become a tablet? Does a Mac have a touchscreen? Does it have pen support? Does it have a real powerful dedicated GPU in there, not some wishy-washy AMD GPU? Yeah. Oh, well, a Mac has a touch strip. Hey. But for the rest of the world who is not used to paying those kind of prices and thinks, well, maybe only my super duper high-end Alienware MSI Dominator Pro or something like that, or Titan, should be costing that much, let's talk about them. Clearly, it combines a whole lot of unique features together. So, yes, you could buy both the 15-inch HP Spectre X360 and the Samsung Notebook 9 Pro. Or you could buy the big and the little Spectre X360 and have your big one for home and your little one for being out and about. If you're comparing to the 15-inch price, that is a little insane because those are pretty high-end products there themselves too. Or you could buy the Spectre X360 and a base Dell XPS 13 as your little guy who's going on the go with you there. Or for those of you who are gamers, you could buy a Dell Inspiron Gaming Edition plus one of those nice Frou-Frou Ultrabooks. Granted, maybe a base configuration of the Frou-Frou 13-inch Ultrabook. So yeah, so what's the justification here? The fact that you can do it all with one device. So you don't have to buy a 14-inch Razer Blade anymore and a Dell XPS 13 or a 15-inch and a 13-inch Spectre or something like that. Or keep your MacBook Air around and look at that sad screen because it's the portable thing you had while you bought some larger high-end laptop. This thing does all those things together. So you've got the convergence. You don't have to buy multiple machines to do the same job. You know, and some people might rather have multiple machines. I get that. Other people don't want to have to try to keep their data synced across devices and all that sort of thing. They want all their stuff on one machine. So that's the Surface Book 2. Again, this one is the 15-inch, which you've figured out by now, and there is a 13-inch, and pretty much everything I said holds true, only in a smaller package with slightly less oomphy graphics. It's an amazing machine, really, and it took me a long time to test this compared to most laptops we do, because it marries an art creation product here with the tablet and the pen features. It's a full-featured Ultrabook, so there's all that going on. And it's a gaming laptop too, which is really, that just makes your noodle, doesn't it? I mean, you've got the GPU of a razor blade inside of here, so there's a lot going on that, you know, it's expensive. And like I said, there's a lot of things you could buy for the price, or a couple of things you could buy for the price, but because it marries all those things together, if you're like me and you do like to game and you do like to do art and you do want to do 3D stuff in art too, where you need that more powerful GPU, and you need a laptop that's all-around good performer with a beautiful display, and you want something stylish, classy, from a name brand manufacturer, it does put all those things together. So it's a lot of money. I can't exactly say it's not worth it, though, to be honest. Even if it's painfully expensive, it's unique, and they did something really good here. I'm Lisa from Mobile Tech Review. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more cool tech videos, and thumbs up if you like this vid.